Okay, so when you have a plus b squared, you've heard Mrs. Sewell's rant about do not just go a squared plus b squared. Okay, it is not. Okay, you must go a plus b times a plus b, which is what they just did, because we know that squaring something means timesing it by itself. You with me? Okay, watch what happens. You're right? I mean, that's what happens. Look what does happen. There's a cool thing that happens right here. See this? There's two of them. Does that always happen? Okay, here we go. Let's try this one. Times it by itself. So here we go. Did it happen? Yes, it did. It always happens. Go down here. Ready? X plus 7 times x plus 7. Let's go. Write it down again. So do the x plus 7 times x plus 7. Multiply it out. All right. X squared plus 7x. Look what happens when you go underneath. Plus 7x plus 49. It happened again. See how there's a 7x and a 7x? It always happens. Every time you're multiplying a binomial by itself, so if you're squaring a binomial, that will always happen. What's that? Well, if I erase my little thing I wrote up here, what happened? I squared the first term. There it is. I squared the last term. There it is. I took the x and times it by the positive 7 and got 7x and wrote it down twice. So you come up with x squared plus 14x plus 49. Does that always happen? Yes, it does. Every time you're timesing a binomial by itself. Here's my little happy dance. Ready? Here's Mrs. Sewell's dance. Square the first, square the last. Times the two terms together, double it, and drop it in the middle. Square the first, square the last, times them together, double it, drop it in the middle. Every time. Okay, so ready? Here we go. 3x minus 1 squared. We're going to square the first. We're going to square the last. Now to square the last, you have to take minus 1 times minus 1. So you get plus 1. We're going to times them together and get negative 3x. Double it, so there's another one of them. So negative 3 and negative 3 is negative 6x, and drop it in the middle. You can do it every time. Now, here's the thing, you guys. If you're like, what? Forget this. I am so confused. Just go back, write it side by side. It takes you one extra little 20 seconds, and you'll get it right. So you don't have to do a shortcut, but there is one. Okay, so if I did this one, squaring a binomial by itself, here we go. Square the first. Square the last. Leave yourself a little space. So I will get plus 9n squared. Yeah? Times them together. 6mn. With me? Double it. 6 and 6 is 12. So I'm going to get negative 12mn. Oh. Got it? So now this little guy has a note here. It says the square of a binomial can be found by squaring the first term, squaring the last term, doubling the product of the two terms themselves and putting it in the middle. Okay, so there it is in words. If you don't like my little, okay. There's one more thing I wanted to show you that always happens. Okay, so that happens when you have exactly the same things being multiplied by itself. Wonder what happens if they were opposite signs. What got an a minus b times an a plus b. Now don't be confused, that's not squared. Because to square something means times it by itself, so it'd be exactly the same, right? These are opposite signs. Watch what happens. First term. Do our little distributive property. Come underneath. Now what happens? Square the first. I should say we multiply the first two terms together. We multiply the last two terms together. So it's a minus b squared. What happens to the middle terms? It cancels. Does that always happen? If they're opposite signs. Because one will be positive and it won't double. So over here, remember how we had two of them? But over here, because they're opposite signs, one's a plus and one's a minus, so they cancel. Do you see that? How that could happen? So here we go. Ready? These are the same things, but they're opposite signs. So the middle term won't double. There won't be two of them. One will be a negative, one will be a positive. It will cancel. Watch what happens. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times a positive 7x is a plus 28x. Then a negative 7x times 4 is a negative 28x. Last but not least, we'll get a negative 49x squared. Look what happens to the middle two terms. Answer is 16 minus 49x squared. So, if you're catching this, you don't have to. You can always write them out side by side and just do the long way. Anybody want to, if you're catching on, anybody want to tell me what, oh, there is two E's in this question. Tell me what this E answer would be. Can anybody do it quickly without writing all the steps out? What do you think it's going to be?
I got 25a squared minus 9b squared. Is it minus since the
Well, is it?
Positive and negative?
Because you're going to do this. This far rainbow and the inside rainbow will cancel, right? The big one and the little one will be, and then you'll have this will be your last term. So it is indeed a negative 9b squared. She's right. If you don't believe me, go ahead and do all the little steps in between. You'll see it. Okay, how about letter F? This should be F. What about F? Is this F like E? No. Why, Melissa?
Because they're the same.
They're both negatives. So there will be no canceling. There won't be a positive and a minus to cancel. This will be like the other kind. Do this one. This one's going to double up. Here it comes. Right here. And that will become a plus 81q squared. So there you got it. Here's your 4p squared, your minus 36pq, and your plus 81q squared. Right? So be careful. These are all little shortcuts, and sometimes people find them helpful, and sometimes people find them confusing. Right? Don't be confused. Do it the long way every time. If you happen to do the long way a few times and you're like, oh, I see what's happening now, maybe then you can switch to shortcut. You don't have to shortcut it. Okay? All right, on the next page, just a quick thought. Anybody want to tell me what you have to do on class example number 2A? Anybody want to suggest what you're going to have to do with this? You, Bailey?
Multiply the 5 into the first bracket and then multiply the 5.
Yes. Take the 5 into the first bracket. Write down your answer. Take that bracket and times it by x minus 6. Just like you would do it if you were doing 5 times 2 times 3. What would you do? Well, 5 times 2 is 10. Get that answer. And 10 times 3 is 30, right? It's the same principle. Could you go backwards? Could you multiply the two brackets together and then times by 5?
Yes.
Absolutely. Just like you could go 3 times 2 is 6, times 5 is 30. You would get 30 no matter how you did it. What is the easiest way? Totally depends on you. You'll have smaller numbers if you multiply these together first, and then times by 5, but I don't care. Guess what you have to do here on B? Hold on, everybody watch. That includes Logan and Adrian. On letter B, can you multiply that negative 8 into the bracket first and then square it? Isaiah is saying no. How come, Isaiah? You have to do exponents first. Yes, you do. Exponent. This is squared. The 8 is nothing, no part of that. It has no part of the squared at all. Okay? Square this bracket first, then times it by the negative 8. It's important that order matters in this case. Okay. How about when you get down here? Whoa, Nelly. These are the biggest, longest questions you've ever seen. Just let me tell you right now. It doesn't get worse than this. This is as worse bad as it gets. Okay, pretty much. This is multiplication. You should do it first. This is multiplication. You should do it second. Then take your two answers with brackets around the second bracket and subtract. We ought to do one. Which one do you want to do? Should we just do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Multiply this together. X plus 5 times x minus 5. It is one of those cool ones where the middle is going to cancel. But in case you don't see it, just go ahead and do it like old times, right? So here we go. X squared minus 5x plus 5x minus 25. You probably caught on that the two middle terms were going to cancel, but if you didn't, that's okay. I'm going to copy down the minus sign. And because it's a subtraction, I'm going to leave everything I'm about to do in brackets. Otherwise, you will get it wrong. I'm going to multiply these next two brackets together. X times x, x times 8. Then do the 2. So 2x and 16. Now, you want to talk about places to make a mistake. Now we're getting into it, right? You can see how there's so many little things to write down. You can get them wrong, so be so careful. Okay, I'm going to do this one together. X squared minus, oh, look at that. Those are gone. Minus 25, right? Now everything in here is going to change signs. It all has to be negated. So minus x squared minus 8x minus 2x minus 16. Guaranteed. If you have a question wrong and you put a pen and say, Mrs. Sula, I don't know where you went wrong, I can just walk over and say, did you watch your signs? 99.9% of the time you made a mistake with a sign, with a plus or minus, almost every time. Okay, now I'm going to lump them together. Combine your like terms. This one and this one, gone. I'm going to put my x's next, so negative 10x. Put those together, right? Like terms. And then you owe 25 and you owe 16, so you owe a lot. 41. There. You with it, Sophie? A lot of work, isn't it? This calls for perseverance. Don't quit me, okay? Don't quit. All right. I think the rest is just practice. Do you want me to do more examples? Do you want to get to work? Get to work? Okay. Oh, wait, you gotta do one more. Wait, stop, come back. This is a good one. Everybody do this question with me. Adrian, open your book because you probably didn't do it. Class example number 5, we're gonna write it all down. This is a good beyond the box, thinking outside. Okay. Given that for every value of x, the polynomial x squared plus 20x plus 50 can be written in this form, determine the values of a and b. This is that numerical response question that nails you, right? No big deal. Start with what you're given. Do this. Work on it. I can square that first bracket. Again, squaring it means multiplying it by itself. Do you know the shortcut? Square the first, square the last, times the a and the x together, and double it. So there's two of them. And then copy down the plus b. Okay, I can do that. Now, look at x squared plus 20x plus 50. Those are supposed to be equivalent, right? This is supposed to be able to be like this. So let's go like this. Ready? Write it down. This is Mrs. Sewell's method. I think it works great. Isn't that supposed to be the same as that? They're supposed to be, so let's make it equal. So you know right away that the x squareds can come off. They're already equal. I can ignore them because they're the same on both sides, right? You follow my logic? Yeah? So let's drop the x squareds. They're already the same. Now I know that my x term on the left is supposed to be the same as my x term on the right. Look at this. This x term is supposed to be the same as or equal to this x term. So what does a have to be? 10. Oh, so I already know something. So a is 10. Okay. Let's pretend we have said a is 10. Let's drop those. Let's forget about those then. We're done with those. Now I know that this a is actually a 10. So now whatever is left here, check this out. This part doesn't have any x's in it. It has to be the part, same with this part that has no x's in it. See where this is going to go? The part that has no x's has to be the same as the other part that has no x's. So I know that a squared plus b has to equal 50. There are no x's in them. But you know what a is? A is 10. So fill that in. So this is 100 plus b has to be 50. So what is the value of b? Negative 50. There's your value of b. There's your value of a. Check, check. Isn't that cool? That's like brilliant. Isn't that fun? It's like you feel so mathematical now.
I'm so confused.
Are you?
Yeah.
Should we do it again? Okay. So exciting. Okay. Look at this. Just poof, gone in an instant. You can carry on. You don't have to watch it again unless you're confused. Okay. You look at this and you're like, what? How is this going to work? I don't understand this, but I can do this. Right? Okay. Do you know how to do the shortcut? You feel okay with that? Okay, so if I square this, I'm going to square the first, square the last, put them together, the a and the x, and then there's two of them. So plus 2ax. But then don't forget I have that little b hanging out there, because that was just that. So I have to go plus b. Okay, you okay? All right, now it had said from the beginning, given that for every value of x, this polynomial can be written like that. So in other words, they're the same. So if they're the same, they could be equal. So I go equals. Okay, now, Melissa, when you have an equal sign, it's like everything on the left side has to be the same weight or value as what's on the right side. Anything that is the same, just like, let's take it off, right? So the x squares are the same on both sides. Let's just take them both off, and would your scale still balance? Yeah, it would. So let's just take it off. We can say, okay, I know that part's gone. It's the same on both sides. My thing is still balanced. Now I know that my x terms on the right have to be the same as the x terms on the left. That's a 2ax. So I know that 2ax has to be the same as 20x. So 2a means 2 times something. What is that thing?
Oh.
Get it? So a has to be 10 in order for this to become a 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a is 10, okay, now I'm kind of done with this. Let's say a is 10, so that means there's a 10 here. So everywhere there was an A, I'm now going to put a 10. All right? So this was times 10, and this was 10. Agreed? Okay, now my 20x and my 20x are the same. So I can just take them off and I should stay balanced. Okay, so I drop this, and I drop this. I'm still balanced. Now I know that everything I have left should be equal. So 100 plus b should equal 50. That all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can subtract 100 if you wanted to. And then there's your B, and there's your A. So Melissa, what's really cool about that, when you asked me that, is this all fell apart if you didn't get what A was, right? So that's how math works. If you miss something, you gotta ask again. Because if you don't ask, then all of this is just like, what? And you get that and you're like, all right, it makes sense. Okay, good job.